To the best of my knowledge, this is a what somebody would use to put curl in their hair, and like so. And you can see this has been heated. How they heated it, I'm not sure, but it looks like by flame.
Yeah.
And then do something with their hair. But I don't know what they do with the ones they have today, let alone with this one. But that's what that was, I'm sure. This little gadget is very rusty. Found it in the bottom of the old shed back home. And I know this is for trimming wicks, candle wicks, or maybe the wicks also on the coal oil lamps of the day. And so, obviously I never used one of these. My mom used to trim the lamps when until I was 8 years old. We lived in houses that didn't have electricity, so everything was done the old-fashioned way.
So the trim piece would go inside that little box? Is that the idea?
The trim pieces, yeah. They go in there and then they can dump it out later. Mom would have her lamps sitting out there and trimming them by, I don't know how she did it. I was kind of small at the time, but I do remember the lamps being filled every day because we needed them in the night. This would be a tool for setting it to an angle and lock it, and then scribing and cutting to the same angle.
Sure.
So these are our tools of the time. Fortunately, before my time, most of them. I had a little bit more modern stuff than this. This is called a block plane. But the block plane, this piece of wood would come out and you could change the blade and do things and then shove it in there. And it did have a metal base.
Is that one you used?
No. I was a little more modern, but it was in the garage or in the old shed. This thing, of all of the things that can't be duplicated anyway, this is an axe from the Indians. The area that we lived in was prairie, and we had Indians, and this particular thing would have been an axe or a war club, and they would have had a wood that was a rod or a stick, I guess you would say, that was, and it split it, and it would come on the sides of this, and then they would wrap it with leather or whatever, rawhide off of their deer skins or whatever, and this was a lethal weapon as well as an axe. How did they do this? How did they get that chipped?
Yeah.
But they had flint and stuff. But if they had the tools to do this with, you would have thought they would have had a real tomahawk or, trader's axe that they would have traded skins for. But this was authentic. And this was found in the little Wabash River, about 2 miles east of Etna, Illinois, which at one time had a post office box and 2 general stores and a gas station and different things like that. But now it's just a ghost town or ghost burg. Never was a town. Anyway, this is a price of all the things here. This also is a tool. It's all wood. Even the screw that works in there is wood. And it would be for a depth gauge if you wanted to know how deep something was going to be, doing layout work for if you're building a cabinet or a table or whatever in the day.
Whose would that have been?
Hmm?
Who would have owned that? Where did it come from?
I've accumulated things over the years. I can't tell you where everything is.
Would it have been from your family?
This is actually, sorrowful to say it, a lot of the things like that old candle clipper or whatever it was, came from my family, from the old shed down by the barn.
Mhm.
Oh, and these that are in better shape, I don't know for sure. I couldn't swear where they came from. That's all wood. And when we're into that right now, something else that's all wood. This bench here, workbench, was, I was teaching, trying to think which school for sure, but I think it was at Bird Junior High. And they had summer school program there for arts and crafts. And they would bring in these old tables and have them just sitting out behind the auditorium, and that's where they would have the class. And whenever it was over, they usually came in and hauled them away. Well, this thing sat there into the school year a long way, so knowing me, I couldn't let it sit there, so we moved it inside, and I had a balcony above my shop where I could store stuff. So this thing was stored. When I retired, I didn't want to leave it there, so I brought it home.
Very good.
And I was talking about the wood there on that machine. This vise down here on the end is the original that was on this machine, on this table. And see, it's wooden screw.
Definitely a woodworking desk.
Definitely a woodworking. And you see that vise over there, that came off of a more modern day classroom table that was in my shops. And again, they just left stuff set. And again, there wasn't anything that I would throw away that I thought could be used somewhere else. And there it is. These would have fit in there, or, well, down here for sure. And something would, and that would make a stop. This would come up, and you could put bigger stuff in there. And that worked nicely. This little gadget here was old in its day. If you took when it was actually used, but I added it so that I could do metal in that. I didn't want to put metal in my vices. But doing small stuff, and over here I had my light so that I could do finer stuff. Okay. My father and his father before him and everybody, old-time farmers in those days, did their own butchering of their meat, whether cows or hogs. And so this cleaver was what my dad had, you know, and it was for chopping meat and bones and stuff. And this is a meat cleaver. Nowadays they do it all by saws and stuff, but that. And then this little device, I don't know where the
Koala.
koala came from. This is for sharpening your knives. And it's called a steel. And you whip your knife across this. You feel it, it isn't coarse at all, but you want a finishing touch on a blade, a butchering blade. This is what the butchers all had.
So would that have been your dad's too?
This would have been my dad's, yeah. We had a meat saw at one time, and it actually, I think we sold it at the sale.
Oh, okay.
And I also regret that too.
Yeah.
But Dad was known in the neighborhood, if you're butchering, call him. For more reasons than one, but one of the reasons was he was real good at killing the hogs clean. You know, people, before you start cutting them up, you need to kill them. And he could use a little .22 rifle that he had and plink them
Wow.
and drop them, and usually it was a clean drop. So it made it worth having him around. And of course, whenever he did something like that, they always wanted to give him something. So they'd give him the heart or the liver, which I hated both of them. I hated that. But give us some sausage or something we can use.
Right.
Well, Mom used it. She liked it, but I didn't. Anyway, that was part of the way it went in those days. This is not from my dad's house, but it's a draw knife, it's called. And you put it down in a vise, and then you can do this, and you can make a little thin board, a thick board thin pretty quick with it. The one we had and was solid. This one here, you can loosen those and it folds up. Makes it easier to store. And I saw it somewhere one time and glommed onto it. And couldn't tell you for sure where I got it, but I saw it had value to me, so I took it. Up here is those hobbles, those with the chain are hobbles, and they fit around and hooked on the back of the cow's legs. So when you're milking the cow, you don't want her raising a leg and putting it in the bucket, which has happened, even with those. But those are hobbles.
Were they from your house or you've come upon them?
Those were probably from our house. It's not in as good a shape as they were when I was milking with them, but at the sale down there in that old shed, you know, we kept digging things out that got laid over on the other side, and I expect those were from there. This thing here, that's a steel trap.
What size trap is that for? What animal?
Fox, raccoons, possums, skunks. It's just a small version of, you see these big old steel traps they use for bear and stuff like that. It's just a small one of those. You had to be able to stand on the sides in order to get it open, and you know, had to be a lot more agile than I am today. But to open the jaws, this had to be squeezed to clear it so it would work. And right here is a little kind of a Lumin Clip. And on the other side of it is a number. And that would be my number for my license for trapping that year. And that was 1946.
Wow. So
I would run my trap line on the way to school.
Oh, really?
So that was actually yours.
Yeah, that was mine. They were in the family. They were dad's or his dad's or what things that I used.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to catch a raccoon, and never did. So, you know, I was in '46. I would have been a 7th grader, maybe 8th grader, and the only thing I ever caught was a skunk. Yeah, Norm, this has nothing to do with tools, but this is a handy tool.
That's a child raising tool, isn't it?
That was the one tool that their mother would use. And
That's a bun warmer, right?
It's a butt warmer, all right.
Yeah, okay.
It was one of those paddle balls,
Yep.
but it worked. obviously, they all came out pretty good.
Do you know who wrote on it?
On that one, probably you.
No, I don't think so. This is the paddle. Flower power.
Well, obviously that was,
This is the paddle. I'm gonna say Tammy. I don't know that I did, and there's no way Jackie would have done that.
yeah, that was off of the old screen door on the home place. Mom, the last license my mom had on her car, on her Chrysler.
What year would that have been? Any idea?
These?
The Chrysler.
Well,
79.
79, yeah. I sold it to my cousin back there after Mom passed away. When she passed away in 80, no, she didn't pass away in 81. She came to live with us in 81.
Okay.
And this was a sign that H.L. Tipton was for Harvey Leroy, who people knew Dad as Roy Tipton. But that was on the top of our mailbox. And we had RFD, Rural Free Delivery. And George Miller was the postman. He lived in Gays, actually next door to Betty's family, who we didn't know at the time, or I didn't know. These were a pair of tongs just for handling hot material in the forge. And I saw you taking a picture of this brand down here on this table. And this is the branding iron that I made in my shop. And so I heated that puppy up and stuck it against there, and there's Tip.
Very good.
So,
What else did you use? What else would you have branded?
oh, Betty, and you know. No, that's it.
Okay. What's the pickaxe right here?
Okay, that's one I picked up from a neighbor. Her husband was well, he got around, let's put it that way. He wasn't always at home. But one of his adventures was mountain climbing and doing stuff. And so he had that.
That was a neighbor in Illinois.
No, it was a neighbor out here.
Okay.
She was getting rid of some of his stuff, which is where I got the swords collection that I've got
Okay.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I am more of kind of a scavenger. That if it could be used, I don't want to throw it away. Because we didn't have Do It Center or
Yeah.
Home Depot to run to every 5 minutes. And you either fixed it yourself or did without.
What about the frisbee, and above the frisbee looks like a,
Okay, well, this is called a spinner. It fit on your steering wheel.
oh, okay.
Norm would have loved one of those. He was one of his rigs. But yeah, my first car, I had a spinner on it. This wasn't mine, but it was one that I think it was out of Pappy's garage, which would have been Betty's dad's,
Okay.
Pappy Smith. All of us son-in-laws called him Pappy. And so he was a Pappy to a lot of people. We were at a party and this got emptied. It actually had booze in it at the time. And I glommed onto it.
Is that insulation? For keeping it cool?
No,
You took it off?
I think it just is a can cooler.
Okay.
As You Like It, trademark, horseradish. And this is kind of fragile, so I'm not going to open it, but it's, raise that up and it releases this, and then you can take the lid off of it. And this was when we had Mom's sale back in 91. The girls and I went, and Betty and I went back there, and we had a what they called a farm sale, selling out Mom's property. Actually, it was an estate sale because we sold furniture and everything. In fact, hadn't intended to, but a woman kept coming and bugging me wanting to see the house because she wanted to buy the house. And I said, it's not ready to sell and we're not, you know, I don't know what I'm doing right now about selling it. And she said, well, I'd like to bring my husband back to see it. And I'm busier than heck with the sale. But I finally relented and let her come back and see the house. And I came back the next day and bought the house. And that solved that problem without even having a problem with it. But this, the auctioneer saw this sitting there and he says, you don't want to sell this here, keep it. It's got value. Well, maybe $2, but in those days that was a lot. So I hung on to it. We'll stick that was a good idea, having that in that cup holder or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norm, here's another tool.
The bore plane.
This was for going in against something and cutting a groove down.
Maybe a rabbiting plane.
That would be it.
And was that yours or something you acquired?
I acquired it.
Yeah.
Hatchet or axe, but it's only sharpened on one direction. Sharpened on this surface and flat over here. And it's got a real big part up here where you wouldn't use that to, in a little, if those were round, I'd call them peens. I don't know what you call the face of that, but and I do know what this was used for, is for making shingles.
Oh, okay.
You have the block of wood, you get this set, and then you can pound on this part. Rather than use it to pound with, you'd pound it to drive it in and then split off this shingle.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Of all of these things, one of my prizes is the wood workbench itself.
That's a nice one.
I had to put new back in here and stuff, and rebuild it because setting out like that, it was going to pieces, which is probably why they left it. But the old boy couldn't let it go. This particular knife here is called an electrician's knife. Why, I don't know for sure, but it comes in handy. And as you can see, I carried it on my belt, and it was part of the Navy. So where I got it was when I was in the Navy, and we had it on our belt. We didn't carry a sheath like the guys do now. But Vicki was talking about this gadget, and I saw it in here. I'd forgotten all about what it was for, and I think you were the one that got me talking about it or thinking about it. And this comes unscrewed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that harmless looking little tube, you take this off and you have different tools in there. And like one of my favorite tools is, well, that is a screwdriver, but it sure is worn out. This is a sharp scriber tool, and this slot here in the side of the case, and that fit down in there, and then this very fine threads but you can run that all the way down, and then you have a tool for starting holes and stuff. And there's a couple other choices in there. And probably if I had some steel wool, I might clean that up. It probably has an advertisement on it.
If you had some steel wool I think you do.
She's being facetious.
She's also being honest.
She knows I am. Again, stuff that was being thrown away from the school district.
Yeah.
Playing up there, as my cap would tell you,
Yeah.
one of my loves is the old-time warplanes from the 1940s, from World War II, and I donate to them regularly, and when I do, usually I get a hat back of some kind, so I've got a collection of these caps, and you know, I'm not afraid to wear them out anywhere, because anybody that wants to take me on that, I'll take them on and give them some exchange. But I don't wear my MAGA hat out around. Fact is, I gave it to Phil,
That's right.
and it was a good thing to do,
Yeah.
because he won't get one, so he has it. This tool, Norm probably knows what it is.
Looks like some kind of a pry.
Crowbar.
Well, remember when you changed the brakes and you
Oh, it's for turning the little wheel on the brakes.
yeah,
Huh.
Okay.
for putting it, you use it when you're putting on your own.
I don't even know if brakes are made that way anymore. Might be.
Nope, but they don't. I don't know that they are. I don't. Well, I would.
But in the 60s, yes,
Yep.
for sure.
We all been there, even you.
Yeah.
Where did your thermometer, that precision antifreeze thermometer that's hanging by the big door, garage door to your right?
They came from the farm down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came from when we had the sale back at the farm.
Okay.
A stone antifreeze.
Dad had it for something.
Tell me, as just a, for sure a reminder, the framed one, the big framed one, where did that live? Who would have had it framed?
This one?
Yeah.
Well, it hung in the home place when Mom and Dad took it over, and then
And when you say the home place, are you talking Row
The
Route
Whitaker-
1, Grandma?
Whitaker
Oh,
place.
Whitaker home place. Okay,
it
oh,
was
yeah.
Grandpa Seth Whitaker, who was my grandfather. His family, his parents bought it and moved into it when he was young. Like, probably here's a picture of him. He was born in 1874, and he died in 47. But anyway, he inherited it, and this is the barn from the place that was like it was then. This is the back of it, but that's not the house he inherited. The original house burned down in 1919, and people, neighbors coming by, came and banged on the door and got their attention because they had what was called a flue fire. And it's soot in the chimney gets on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the people in the house didn't know it until the whole house was going. And so in 1919 that happened, and in 1920 my grandpa and a lot of the neighbors and a couple of people he hired if he had to get the skill that they needed, they built this house. And it was 24 by 24 feet square.
Okay.
So each room inside was 12 by 12, because usually the outside wall took up 6 inches. And so we had 4 rooms. And in those days, in that area, we had 4 rooms and a bath. There was no bath. And so the bath was to the crapper outside, and toilet. Anyway, that old house, Pop and those neighbors built it. He never bothered to paint it or do anything. It just sat there for 46, I guess. We moved in, and from then on, it was labor for my father. When he finished his job, wherever it was, he'd come home and dig a trench first of all, between the well, which was out there about almost as far as from here to the house across the street, and dig that trench in. And then as he progressed, then he would lay pipe in there, which was old lead pipe or galvanized pipe. And then he and a friend built the back porch on. And once they had the back porch on, they were able to put a hot water heater in there. Anyway, they had to run electricity out to the well to pump the water up and get it into the house. And that was, like I say, we moved in there probably in '46. And when I graduated from high school, we had running water in the house, in the kitchen. And that was very, very good times, because Mom really liked that, of course. So did I. You didn't have to go to the well, pump a bucket of water, bring it in and heat it in order to take a bath or do anything. So that was good. That was when I was in high school. I graduated in '51, went to the Navy in '52. When I came home in '54, again, my dad had one of those 12 by 12 rooms in the house, built a bathroom in there. And when I came home from the Navy, I could actually go to the bathroom in the house. That was pretty good. And there was an old stairway. There's kind of a combination ladder and steps, and that was it, pretty steep. And you went up and you pushed a lid over, and that got you into the attic. And he had taken that step out and went over on another wall and actually built stairs to go up into the attic, and partitioned off 2 more rooms up there. And so that was progress, but progress over 20 some years of him working his tail off. And I learned things from him, but not the skills. Basically, I learned that I don't want to have to do that. And so I've been reluctant to do remodels and stuff on my own. I build small things, enjoy doing that, but like when we had this flood in the house here, and we had professionals come in and take care of it, but even then it was a mess. So not a fun thing. I came home from the Navy in '64 and didn't have a direction, didn't know what I was going to do, wanting to get a job, but there wasn't many to be had. I had part-time things like loading trucks out at a shipping company and work on the docks in the evening and get the trucks ready for the drivers to take the next day. But getting to be a driver, you had to kill somebody probably, because that was a plush job. It wasn't very plush as far as work goes, but at least it was steady and you had income, which was a good thing at that time. I came home September the 10th from the Navy in 1954, and before October, there in those first 3 weeks I was home, and I had a job on the docks loading trucks at night, and my buddy and I had met some girls when we were cruising Broadway, which was the place to go, and we met this carload of girls from Windsor, and Howard hit it off with one of them, and we told her we wanted a double date, but I wanted a date with a certain girl over in Windsor, and so she said, okay, I'll set it up. So we set the date, and I got off of work that night, went down to my aunt's and cleaned up, and Howard came with the girls, and he came walking in the house, And he says, well, I'm sorry, but we couldn't get one of the Jones twins. And I, uh-oh. And he says, don't worry about it, I'll trade you right now if you want. And it was Betty. So here's what the product was, the mid kid out of the group. So that was kind of neat. We wound up getting married in 55, in December of 55. And Barbara, her older sister, and her beau had got married in April of 55. And so we kind of had parallel lives there, but my life wasn't going to be in Illinois, but I did have to go to college there. And when I graduated from college, 3 years later, Betty and I and the girls, Vicky and Jackie, and we headed for California, and never looked back. Tammy's the only one of the girls that's real Californian. She was born here. And then about 15 years later, Barb and Tom moved to California too. And so our girls and their boys and daughter went to school here in Simi Valley. Our kids to Royal High School, their kids to Simi High School. And so they have connections here as we do. And so when Jill comes back, she knows her way around, and the boys do too, or boys did. The oldest boy of Tom and Barb's, Brian, passed away and had cancer and no chance of recovery, so we moved over to Colorado where we were spending our summers, and he passed away that summer that they moved in. So these people up here, great-grandfather on my dad's side, that family there, great-great-grandpeople, as well as grandparents on my dad's side. They're the Reeds. These were the Wetherells, which were from my grandpa Whitaker's side. He married into that family. And
Youngest boy is Seth.
yeah, he's Seth. There in the middle, that's my grandfather. He was a Whitaker, but he was in with the Wetherells. And because I don't know, the grandmother wanted him in there. And then as he grew older, there was where he was a teenager, I guess. And as he grew much older, there he is with his kids. And that's the back of the house that the farmers built. That's the front corner of the house. That's my mom sitting on the pony. These were my grandmother's family from my pop's wife. And they would have been Robinsons. I think I've got them all identified on the back if they're not on the front.
Yeah,
And
we appreciate that.
we can check them out clearer someday. Now, I think we ought to quit.
All right,
If you come across other stuff you want to know about, I can
I'll ask along the way.
spin it again.